The all-new American LGM-118 Peacekeeper missile, also known as the MX for Missile Experimental, was a force to be reckoned with. At 195,000 pounds, 71 feet long, and 7 feet wide, the MX was the largest U.S. missile of the time in size, lethality, and accuracy. Each equipped with a lethal payload of 10 independently guided nuclear warheads equivalent to 300,000 tons of TNT, the destructive power of the Peacekeeper was almost unfathomable. To see the comparison of other missiles of the time, the Minuteman III, the next largest U.S. missile, was about one-third of the weight of the MX missile. The stance of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormon Church or the LDS Church, against the basing of the MX missile in Utah and Nevada was an example of taking a stand. Through their stand, the Mormon Church firmly opposed the government and the common consensus of the U.S., ignited a change in our country's defense systems, and reduced the amount of MX missiles that were produced, ultimately saving Utah and Nevada's natural resources and land. After the end of World War II on September 2, 1945, the United States and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or USSR, the two largest superpowers during the time, turned against each other in a war. Labeled the Cold War, it was a conflict of ideas and words, and not military action. The US and the USSR both had different forms of governments and economies. The US had a capitalist economy and a republic government, and the USSR adopted a communistic government. The United States and USSR fought proxy wars in countries such as Korea and Vietnam to stop or sustain communism. The Cold War also led the US and the USSR to compete for the best military technology and advancement of the time. As the Cold War sped forward, both countries expanded their nuclear weapons arsenal. In 1979, the United States estimated in a government report the Soviets would have 5,928 warheads in their no-response multiple warhead ICBM force. This expansion of nuclear missiles escalated as the years progressed, creating a need for the Peacekeeper missile, which led to the LDS Church's stand. In 1979, the President of the United States of America, President Jimmy Carter, realized that the nuclear weapons of the United States were beginning to become outdated and vulnerable. He decided to replenish and revitalize the United States' nuclear weapons by building the newly designed MX missile to keep it ready for action. Robert List, the governor of Nevada at the time, commented,
"This was during the height of the Cold War with the Soviet Union, and we were worried, legitimately, that we could have World War III, and the United States certainly had to protect itself."
Taking action, President Carter made a statement on the 7th of September 1979, which announced that the MX would be based in the western deserts of Utah and Nevada. Carter and his administration planned to base the MX using a shell game type of strategic basing system.
The idea was that the Soviets would not be able to tell which ones were the real missiles moving around from place to place and which ones were actually fake.
The MX will be based in a sheltered road mobile system to be constructed in our western deserts, the total exclusive area of which will not exceed 25 square miles. This system will consist of 200 missile transporters or launchers, each capable of rapid movement on a special roadway connecting approximately 23 horizontal shelters. Carter explained that this missile was to be used as strategic deterrence. Carter's plan was officially named the Multiple Protective Shelters System, and work on the logistics began about a week after his announcement. President Carter and the United States government found that the Great Basin would be the optimal location for the MX missile, but the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints did not agree. This crucial disagreement would eventually lead to the Mormon Church's stand against MX. During President Carter's administration, another pressing matter concerning the MX was the SALT II Treaty, or Strategic Arms Limitation Talks Treaty, which set limits to the nuclear weapons the US and USSR possessed. The treaty specifically regulated how many independent warheads each missile could hold. The SALT II Treaty made it more important for the United States to increase their nuclear arsenal, especially to build the MX as soon as possible. January 20th, 1981, the end of the Carter administration, ushered in Ronald Reagan as the new President of the United States. From the start, Ronald Reagan took MX by the horns.
Our current aging land-based missiles are suffering from attrition. The 22-year-old Titan missiles are being retired, leaving our land-based missile force with less and less punch with which to deter aggression. And that's one of the reasons we need the Peacekeeper. It's the most reliable and accurate land-based missile America has ever produced.
He assigned Caspar Weinberger, the Secretary of Defense, to create a panel of non-government professionals who would evaluate the MX and its basing. These professionals would look at the many basing modes and determine the best option based on the facts. This panel was named the Towns Commission, created in March of 1981 and named after Charles Towns, the leader of the group. As this group studied the many options, more opposition rose up against the MX being based in the Multiple Protective Shelters system. Finally, after long consideration and thought, President Spencer W. Kimball, First Counselor N. Eldon Tanner, and Second Counselor Marion G. Romney, the Mormon Church's leaders, or First Presidency, released a statement opposing the MX basing in Utah and Nevada on May 5, 1981. The lengthy, bold statement, at about 700 words, officially stood up to the MX in the Great Basin. The statement opposed MX on grounds of the moral problem nuclear weapons pose, the strain it would put on natural resources, and the military target it would put on the Great Basin. They argued that inevitably so large a construction project would have an adverse impact on water resources. The environmental impact statement for the project proved their environmental argument to be valid, claiming that the project would require a total of about 110,000 acres of land. Our fathers came to this western area to establish a base from which to carry the gospel of peace to the peoples of the earth. It is ironic and a denial of the very essence of that gospel that in this same general area there should be constructed a mammoth weapon system potentially capable of destroying much of civilization. This statement dealt a major blow to the MX-MPS system. LDS members supported their leader's statement. Soon, Utah politicians such as Jake Garn and Orrin Hatch removed their support from the MX-MPS system. According to a Deseret News poll in March of 1981, 44% of Utah Mormons favored the Multiple Protective Shelter system for MX, with 46% opposing. After the LDS Church's statement was released, the same poll was taken in September 1981, with 25% in favor and 67% in opposition. Clearly, the approval ratings plummeted because of the Church's statement, which influenced the people's opinions. I think it will sway public opinion more into the realm of opposition than was previously the case, said Scott M. Matheson, the governor of Utah. The First Presidency's statement ignited change on the national level as well. The statement made nationwide newspapers such as the New York Times. As a result of the May statement of the LDS Church and other findings from many government reports, President Reagan made a speech advocating against MPS and proposed that the MX missiles be placed in Minuteman silos. We will not deploy 200 missiles in 4,600 holes, nor will we deploy 100 missiles in 1,000 holes. Instead, we will complete the MX missile, which is much more powerful and accurate than our current Minuteman missiles, and we will deploy a limited number of the MX missiles in existing silos as soon as possible. This temporary fix for MX was altered by Reagan to closely spaced basing, a method where the missiles are densely packed next to each other underground. Closely spaced basing was rejected by Congress in March 1982, so the Air Force and a panel called the Scowcroft Commission researched further how to base MX. Finally, on August 10, 1983, both Reagan and Congress approved the basing of 100 MX missiles, later reduced to 50, at F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming. By December of 1988, the system was fully operational. Other groups also opposed the MX missile. Some may argue that the Mormons were not the primary activists. Although other anti-MX groups may have expressed dissent, their impacts were minimal compared to the change that the LDS Church's stand created. The LDS Church's stand influenced the politicians and people of the time, a feat that was not accomplished by the other anti-MX groups. In the end, the LDS Church's stand against the MX made a change and left an impact on our country that will not soon be forgotten. Through their stand, the LDS Church influenced where the Peacekeeper was based, the number of Peacekeeper missiles that were created, and the basing method of the missiles. Had MX been deployed in the Great Basin, Utah and Nevada's natural resources would have been depleted. Other more severe effects, such as nuclear war, also may have been possible. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints' stand against the MX missile being based in the Great Basin region will always bear witness to the fact that taking a stand can make a change, and that we all too must take a stand to make a change.